He called me and laughed. "I'm divorcing you, and I've already sold the house." I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. The streetlights blurred into streaks, but his words, those were seared into my mind. "Already sold the house," I whispered, my voice catching like broken glass. I replayed it over and over in my head, that cruel laughter, the finality of already. I sat frozen in the driver's seat, engine humming, but everything else felt hollow. The world outside seemed distant, like I was watching it through a foggy window. My pulse thundered in my ears. How could he do this? Without warning, without a conversation, without a shred of respect. Moments earlier, I'd been driving home from my shift, thinking about dinner, our bedtime routine, the small comfort of old familiar rhythms. And then, his call cracked open my world. "He laughed," I muttered. He actually laughed. My phone resting on the passenger seat lit up again. No missed calls, no messages. Just that call, that voice. I dialed his number back. Ringtone, nothing. "Why?" I whispered to the empty car. "Why would you laugh?" My mind flared back to the early years. We'd met in college. He was stubborn, witty, the kind of guy who made me laugh even when I was mad. We'd built our life together, a dorm room romance turned first apartment, then engagement, then this house. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever is. But it was ours. We painted walls, fought over curtains, celebrated birthdays and anniversaries, even cried together during scary movies. That house, sunlit kitchen, creaky floorboards, quiet backyard, was where we dreamed our future. We talked about Sunday morning pancakes, backyard barbecues, maybe a baby someday. That was the setup. That was the promise. But over the past few months, things changed. I noticed how he stopped saying "I love you" in the mornings. Conversations ended abruptly. He started coming home late, claiming work. I believed him, even defended him to my friends. I thought it was stress. I thought it was temporary. And now, this. I took a deep breath and pulled the car into a quiet side street. My phone buzzed. An email. "Your house has been sold." My breath hitched. I opened it. Photos of empty rooms, staged furniture, pristine surfaces, photos of our kitchen, our living room, but with strangers' decorations. The agent's signature, the final sale price. My hands trembled so badly, I nearly dropped my phone. I stared at the screen, half expecting to blink and see it go away, but it didn't. It stared back at me, cold and relentless. Tears pooled in my eyes. Not tears of sorrow exactly, more a slow-burning fury mixed with heartbreak. How dare he erase everything so casually? I leaned back and pressed the back of my hand to my forehead. My mind raced. "Hi, it's me, your client." "Ah, yes, ma'am. The sale did go through Monday. All documentation was signed and finalized." I swallowed hard. "Signed? All of it?" "Your husband handled the paperwork. He said he had your permission." My stomach dropped. Permission? My permission? I hadn't given anything. I didn't know. I didn't agree to this. There was a pause. "Well, there's the paperwork, properly signed." I closed my eyes. I hated it, but I needed more. "Who's the buyer?" Another pause. "I'm sorry, ma'am. That's private." It felt impossible. Paper burning into my memory. My dreams for sale. My safety ripped away. I quietly ended the call. I stayed in that car for hours, tears dropping onto my lap, the night wrapping around me like a shadow. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive to the buyer's house and scream outside their window. Instead, I sat, numb. Finally, I shoved the phone into my pocket and stepped out. Night air hit my face. It was cold, but I didn't care. I walked down the street, each step feeling heavy as a boulder. My head pounded. My dreams collapsed inside me. I found myself on a bench in a small park. I sat and looked at the sky. Stars. Indifferent. Moon. Aloof. Watching. A text buzzed. From my best friend. "You okay?" My fingers hovered over the screen, shaking. I typed, "He sold the house." He laughed. Reply, "Call me now." I stared at her name. Simple, unwavering loyalty. I pressed call. She answered on the second ring. "I'm sorry," she said, and I cried again. This time, louder, harder, because everything I loved had shattered, because I didn't even know why, because betrayal. I thought I would wake up from this nightmare, but I didn't. I kicked off my shoes and let the tears flow. Memories flooded me. Birthday mornings, dance parties, lazy Sundays. That house wasn't just property, it was our story. And now, someone else's story. I closed my eyes. I whispered to the night, "I'll fight for what you stole." I didn't sleep that night. Not a second. I laid on my friend's couch, staring at the ceiling, the familiar crack in the plaster above me almost comforting, like something that hadn't changed, unlike everything else in my life. I could still feel his voice in my ear. I'm divorcing you, and I've already sold the house. That laughter, that smug, casual cruelty, it looped in my head like a broken record. I kept asking myself, why now? Was it someone else? Was he just done with me? Was the house, our house, just some twisted power move? By sunrise, I had decided something.
I wasn't going to be silent.
Not anymore. I dug out our paperwork. The deed, the mortgage, my name was on it. My signature right there beside his. He couldn't have sold it without my permission, unless he forged something. It hit me like a thunderclap. The documents, the signatures. I hadn't signed anything. My heart pounded again, but not from grief this time, from something sharper, anger. I called a lawyer. Within minutes of explaining the situation, he said the one thing I was hoping for. If your signature was forged, that's not just unethical, it's illegal. We can challenge the sale, especially if you were co-owner. The fire that had dimmed inside me sparked again. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. I had been betrayed. It wasn't just a marriage ending. It was a war he declared without telling me. Later that day, I texted him. I didn't ask why. I didn't beg for explanation. I said, I've retained legal counsel. You will hear from them soon. He responded with, LMAO, you're too late. It's already done. No apology, no hesitation, just cruelty, arrogance. It was like he wanted to break me, like he needed to win, but that was his mistake. I wasn't trying to win, I was trying to survive, and that made me dangerous. My lawyer began collecting everything, signatures, dates, correspondence with the real estate agent. The sale had gone through a title company who, under oath, would need to confirm that both parties signed. When we confronted them with proof that I hadn't, everything started to shake. Their tone changed. Suddenly, we were assured it was handled, turned into, we'll need to investigate this thoroughly. The moment I knew they believed me was when the buyer's attorney contacted my lawyer and asked, what resolution would be acceptable to avoid litigation? I didn't answer immediately. I wanted to scream that they should undo it all, give me my home, my peace, my sense of safety. But the home, our home, felt tainted now. It wasn't just drywall and hardwood floors anymore. It was betrayal in a blueprint, ghosts in every corner, memories with blood on them. I went to see it one more time, parked outside the driveway I once pulled into 100 times, groceries in the trunk and hope in my heart. It looked different, emptier. The curtains had been changed. There was a welcome sign on the door. I didn't knock. I didn't go in. I just sat there, staring, until tears blurred my vision again. Then I drove away. My lawyer continued pursuing fraud charges. There was now a real chance that not only could the sale be voided, but my ex could face legal consequences, criminal ones. I thought that might make me feel vindicated, but it didn't. He didn't just sell a house. He erased our life. He wiped it clean like it never mattered. And he laughed doing it. What kind of person does?
I only knew what I had to do next.
I filed for a divorce. Officially, legally, completely. He had thrown the first match into our world, but I was going to control the burn. The process was messy. He resisted at every step, delayed paperwork, lied about assets, hid money, but he didn't expect me to keep receipts. And I had every receipt. Joint accounts he thought I wouldn't check? Checked. Credit cards he opened behind my back? Found. Messages to another woman? Screenshotted. I brought everything to the court. During the hearing, he looked at me like I was someone he didn't recognize. Cold, quiet, unshaken. Maybe he expected the crying version of me, the broken version, the girl sitting in her car with her heart torn open, but that version was gone. The judge listened, reviewed, asked questions. My ex stumbled through lies, blaming miscommunication, claiming she knew that it was just a misunderstanding, but the forged documents spoke louder than he did. The sale was frozen, the proceeds seized, and he was charged with fraud. He didn't laugh then. When the final papers were signed, he didn't look me in the eye. He just stood, quiet, beaten, and left the courtroom. I sat for a while after the judge left, just breathing, letting it all fall away from me. The betrayal, the noise, the weight. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was power, and it was mine. You would think that after everything, after exposing the forgery, freezing the sale, winning in court, I'd feel victorious. I'd imagined that moment so many times, him walking out with his shoulders slumped, me standing tall, reclaiming everything he tried to steal. But victory doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels quiet. It feels like walking out of that courthouse and not needing to look back. I didn't need an apology anymore. I didn't need answers. The person I once married didn't exist. Not really. Maybe he never did. Maybe I had just believed in someone I wanted to see, someone kind, someone loyal, someone who would never betray me like this. But now, I saw him clearly. And that clarity came with peace. In the weeks that followed, I started over. I signed a lease on a small apartment with light that poured in through tall windows in the morning. The first night I slept there, the silence didn't feel lonely. It felt like a beginning. My friends helped me move in. My best friend brought wine and a houseplant. We sat on the floor that night, laughing and crying, and watching the city lights blink through the windows. And for the first time in a long time, I felt okay, not fixed, not healed, but okay. I enrolled in a yoga class. I bought a cheap secondhand bike and started riding on Sunday mornings. I rediscovered my love for painting, something I hadn't done since college. I painted for hours one afternoon with music blaring and colors staining my fingers. And when I looked at the canvas, I cried. Not because it was sad, but because it was mine. This life, this moment, mine. My ex? He didn't handle the consequences well. He tried calling once after the charges were finalized. I didn't answer. He sent a message, "Happy now?" And I stared at the screen, wondering what he thought he'd accomplished. I didn't reply, because this wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about getting even. It was about reclaiming my voice. One evening, months after everything settled, I drove past the old neighborhood, just once. For closure, the house still stood, though it had a different number now. New owners, fresh paint, different porch furniture. It didn't sting as much as I thought it would. I parked a little ways down the street and just looked at it. I remembered the nights we stayed up too late laughing in the kitchen, the smell of pancakes on lazy Sundays, the small fights that turned into cuddles, the dreams we built between those walls. And then I remembered that call, his laugh, and how I survived it. It didn't break me. It broke open something in me, something that needed air, needed light. I didn't regret the years I gave. I didn't regret the love, but I was done carrying the hurt, done letting it define me. I whispered, "Thank you," under my breath, not to him, but to the part of me that held on long enough to break free. And then I drove away. The sun was setting, casting gold across the pavement, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the road ahead looked open, wide, full of possibility. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I was going forward, and I was never looking back. Subscribe for more dark, faceless storytelling. What would you do if someone you loved tried to erase your entire life?